In part 3 of Before the Cock Crows, we outlined the purpose and intentions of our mission. Michael Clark also gave a personal address to all the inmates and Trojan warriors that was translated into dialogue, so there would be no misunderstanding as to our work and intentions. So, back to our mission, October 2002. We outlined the programme of our mission in the prison on the 15th of October, with the giving of their books, informing them that over 60 VIPs had been invited to come to the presentation of their books, Trojan Warriors. An A5 paperback containing all their testimonies in 365 pages with 66 live giving testimonies. We realised we'd missed out 2 testimonies, and so in order not to disappoint the writers, we decided to reprint a supplement which now includes them. One of their testimonies was Sister Claudette, and another from Brother Isabogani, who were all Trojan Horse staff but not prisoners. I call them outmates. Here's a list of the inmates that attended our meeting. Our objectives were very clear, and the following 47 men of NBPTI listened to the address, starting with Andy Dolan, Red Dizon, Gary Lascelles. Well, you can read the list. There are in fact so many. There were 22 men also on death row. They weren't present, but they were to be involved in the book giving award on the 15th of October, God willing. After that, in the afternoon, we met with the director of New Bilibid Prison, Ricardo Macala. And we showed him the video that we'd made during our first mission to the Philippines in August 2001 of the previous year. It was the next Saturday, the 5th of October, that we went with Sister Neola, Raymond and Pollock, including Robert Lissardo, who accompanied us both on these occasions, to the medium compound and spoke to the prisoners gathered. We met an inmate who wished to see Shay Cullen, and he suggested we invite medium inmates to the October the 15th meeting. We then spoke to the maximum compound inmates, giving a message of encouragement. This was the work of Neola and Robert, who had been doing this before they had separated and had been doing it together in the past since his release from New Bilibid Prison. That evening of the 5th of October, I stayed late in maximum compound with Michael. This was a privilege and not opened to all RVOs. That night, we were invited to a special meeting of significant people inside the prison that included mayors and leaders called commanders. VIPs were also present, even from Makalang Palace. It was an exclusive Saturday night gathering of significant men, New Bilibid Prison, so an opening for us to meet those whom we'd come to help. This was not a religious group, but men of the world from all parts of the Philippines. We were given food and drink and were accompanied by a God Marshal rescuer as a bodyguard. These men are specially appointed prison inmates. There were about 240 of them, and they dressed in black and were allowed to carry a wooden baton to show their sign of authority. They were not allowed to the meeting, but Michael and I were invited as guests. The next day, it was reported that Michael and I were drinking wine with sinners, which to the Philippine born-again Christians was a bad thing. This report spread quickly, like wildfire, throughout the prison. The fact was, it was not wine, but probably gin, which may have been made by the inmates. I learned that this was in fact alcohol, which was banned in the prison. I've since learned that the inmates manufacture their own alcohol in order not to be daunted by a rule that they don't respect. This drink was called tuba. It seemed to me that these men actually ran the prison. The following morning, I was approached outside the prison by a lady pastor called a pastora. Her name was Sita, who asked, had I been drinking wine? She seemed amazed that anyone could do such a thing. I felt grieved in my spirit and realised that the spirit of those under the don't do law had bewitched these people. Touch not, taste not, handle not, i.e., they had fallen from grace or had never been freed from natural religion, and they sought to bind others to their religious views. They viewed a man's righteousness was dictated by what one does and does not realising that what one eats or drinks does not defile a man or make him unclean, but rather those things which spring from his heart, such as lying, gossip, unclean thoughts, evil thinking and speaking, all of which defile the man, as food and drink passes out of the body. The kingdom of heaven not being about eating and drinking. This kind of outward righteousness is what I have now come to describe as Arminian righteousness, or a righteousness of the carnal man, as we shall see as these things unfold. At that time, I record my experience in the strict and particular Baptist Church in England over 20 years ago. They were far stricter over many other issues than drinking wine. I can cite one example regarding television. It was considered wrong to own a television set and to watch such programs, as this was a means of defiling the mind and conscience, and that we must keep ourselves unspotted from the world. In their community, they were not allowed to own a television set or watch such programs because it brought the world into their home, and it was a bad example for young people who were directed to walk uprightly and not be conformed to this world's standards. One would be considered to be on par with a sinner, prostitute or atheist if one owned a TV set or allowed its use. They argued that if you use your liberty to watch a television set, even though it had an on-off switch, you could easily see things you should not be watching and be responsible for allowing your children and other weak believers to sin and stumble. So in order not to be a stumbling block, it was a principle that no member of a strict Baptist church could have a television set. If they did have one, they would be put out of church communion. I recalled that these people allowed smoking and drinking, but not the television set. As a result of this, I have now decided to publish my third book that is entitled Touch Not, Taste Not, or The Beaton Crisis 1984, in which I describe in detail my secession from the strict and particular Baptist Church situated in Buckinghamshire, England. This I wrote in 1984 and had a limited circulation. It has now been republished in a third edition entitled Let Christian Men Be Men. I now recall that it was exactly 14 years to the day after my call by grace and conversion to Christ on the 16th of January 1970 that our church, the first and only church I had joined, had become a gospel standard listed church where these kind of rules were applied. Our Beaton Strict and Particular Baptist Church became a gospel standard cause on the 16th of January 1984. In retrospect, I now believe this has happened to me so that I might be moved to correctly teach the difference between a natural man's righteousness, works of the flesh, Christian righteousness, and justification by the imputation of Christ's righteousness.